happens when someone important leaves? In the locker room, in the stands, on the ice. That's pretty much how Leafs fans felt about Mitch Marner's departure this offseason. There was no scandal, no drama, just the absence, and maybe the painful awareness that not everyone is replaceable. Since then, the big question has been hanging in the air. Who will take his place? Not just tactically, but emotionally, technically, symbolically. Who will line up with Matthews and Knies and make that machine work again? Because as much as the Leafs management has made smart moves, none of the pieces announced so far seem to carry the weight, energy, or versatility that Marner brought every time he skated on the ice. Well, what if I told you the answer could come from Philadelphia? Red-haired, with a heavy shot, eyes that have seen the hard side of the NHL, and a straightforward playing style? Today we're going to analyze a proposal that would put Owen Tippett on the Toronto Maple Leafs in a bold trade with the Philadelphia Flyers. A move that could finally shape the Leafs' offense and change the course of the season. But it's not just about fitting pieces. It's about vision. Despite
Courage
still playing at a high level, the search for an offensive
represents
identity
a short-term
that doesn't depend on just one name. The proposal comes from the portal heavy.com, and frankly, it's one you can't ignore. Toronto would receive Owen Tippett, a 26-year-old right winger, in exchange for a hefty package. Cowan, Nick Robertson, Jarnkrok, a first-round pick in 2028, and a fourth-round pick in 2027. These are important names, promising players, valuable assets. But they're also trade chips in a market where the present weighs more than the future, especially when you have Austin Matthews' prime and an entire city waiting for results now. Let's take it slow. First, who is Owen Tippett? A player who, if you only look at last season's numbers, might go unnoticed. 20 goals, 23 assists, 43 points. But context is everything. He achieved those numbers playing on a team in full rebuild, where lines change constantly. The pressure is lower, but the chaos is greater. Now, place that same Tippett alongside Matthews and Knies, with regular power play minutes, in a more structured offensive system under Craig Berube's command. Then the conversation changes. Tippett has a guaranteed contract. 8 years, US $49.6 million, with a $6.2 million AV. For a 26-year-old player who still has room to grow, this is stable and predictable. He's the type of athlete who doesn't shine under the spotlight all the time, but will give you physicality, offensive presence, and puck aggression. In Toronto, this combination could turn into pure gold, especially because he wouldn't have to carry the team, but rather complement a system with pieces that already know how to create space and finish. And Toronto? Why give up Cowan, Robertson, Jarnkrok, and 2 draft picks? Well, let's break it down. Cowan is one of the Leafs' big prospects. A smart, fast winger with good puck control and the personality of a player who steps up in big games. But he's still a mystery. He's never played in the NHL. Could he explode? Yes, but it could also take time, and time is something Toronto doesn't want to waste. Nick Robertson is another delicate chapter. Talented, with potential for 20-plus goals per season. But his story is marked by injuries, interruptions, and struggles to establish himself in the main roster. He doesn't have a defined role with Berube, and behind the scenes, it wouldn't be surprising if he's been on the exit radar for some time. Jarnkrok is basically a salary adjustment piece. He's entering the last year of an $8.4 million contract and is not seen as part of the franchise's future. He brings experience, can play in different positions, but doesn't add real long-term value. The draft picks? Important, of course, especially the first-round pick. But when you look at the Leafs' current cycle with Matthews, Nylander, and Riley still at their peak, maybe the question isn't what will we have in 2028, but rather, what can we achieve in 2025? And that completely changes the perspective. It's worth remembering that Brad Treliving, the Leafs GM, has already made it clear he's eyeing a top 6 forward. Mitch was a top 6 forward, and we haven't filled that gap, he said on July 1st. So it's not just an adjustment, but a complete repositioning of the offensive structure. The arrivals of Maxelli, Roy, Joshua, and Petzetta have brought depth, but have not replaced Marner. Tippett, yes, could be that player. On the ice, the fit is tempting. Tippett on the right wing of the first line, alongside Matthews and Knies, forms a young, explosive trio with complementary profiles. Matthews draws the coverage. Knies opens space with physicality, and Tippett finishes with precision. In transition, this trio can be deadly. On the power play, Tippett can play in the left circle, where Marner reigned, but with a different approach. More shots, fewer passes. This brings diversity and unpredictability to the Leafs' offensive system. Moreover, Tippett fits Craig Berube's profile. Intense, committed, defensively responsible. He's not just a highlight reel player. He delivers shift after shift, something Berube values highly. And it's this kind of consistency that Toronto desperately needs to compete in long playoff series. On the Flyers' side, the logic also makes sense. Tippett is valuable but not untouchable. The franchise is focused on rebuilding, and accumulating assets is part of the process. Cowan would be the big name, with real chances to debut in the NHL next season. Robertson would have a fresh start, without the constant pressure of Toronto. Jarnkrok would add experience to the bottom six. And the draft picks, well, they're ammunition for the future. And it's not just my opinion. Analysts from The Athletic, Daily Faceoff, and TSN have already pointed out Tippett as one of the most underrated wingers in the league. A player who evolved quietly, without the spotlight of a market like Toronto, but who is ready to take the next step. Flyers fans, in fact, don't want to lose Tippett. And Leafs fans are already starting to dream about what he can do alongside Matthews. To recap, Toronto would give up Cowan, Jarnkrok, Robertson, and 2 draft picks. In return, they would get a real replacement for Marner, a ready right winger with a contract, tactical fit, and hunger for protagonism. Tippett is not Marner, but maybe he's exactly what Toronto needs right now. With him, the first line gets new life. The offensive structure balances out. The pressure on Maxelli and Nylander decreases. And Berube would have one more weapon to shape the team in his style. The Leafs' window to win remains open, but no one knows for how long. This kind of move could be the difference between another frustrating elimination and a real Stanley Cup run. What do you think? Is it worth giving up Cowan and those picks to get Tippett now? Is he the right name to carry Marner's legacy? Or should Toronto bet in another direction? Leave your opinion in the comments because this discussion will go far. And if you like this analysis, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. The Leafs saga isn't over yet, and the next chapters promise much more emotion. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.